My name is Riley. I'm sitting here in the dining room, the air thick with tension and shock. The table is still set with the fine china my mother brought out for our monthly family dinner, but now it feels like a mockery of the happy occasion we'd intended. My husband, Ethan, is sitting across from me, his face pale and his jaw tight. He's just opened an envelope that my sister, Lila, placed in front of him with a sickeningly sweet smile. The room has gone deathly silent, and all I can hear is the soft clink of my father's fork hitting his plate as it slips from his hand. My mother is crying, her hand over her mouth, and my father is sitting there, staring at his plate, demanding answers that no one seems ready to give. Lila is frozen in her seat, her eyes fixed on the paper in front of her, as if it might disappear if she looks away. I still can't believe what's happened. Just an hour ago, we were all gathered here, laughing and enjoying each other's company. Ethan was pouring wine, and my father was telling a funny story. But then, Lila stood up and walked around the table, setting the envelope down in front of Ethan like it was a weapon. "You deserve the truth," she'd said, sliding it towards him. I remember the look on her face, a look of triumph that made my stomach turn. I had no idea what was inside, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. Ethan opened the envelope slowly, unfolding the single sheet of paper inside. I watched as his eyes scanned the page, and the color drained from his face. He set the paper down on the table and just stared at it for a moment, as if trying to convince himself he'd read it wrong. Then he looked up, not at me, but at Lila. His smile, the one that had made him look so at ease all night, was gone. In its place was a cold, sharp expression I'd never seen on his face in our 5 years of marriage. He looked at Lila and said one sentence, so quiet that the whole table had to lean in to hear it. "You should have checked your own results before you handed me mine." Lila's face changed instantly. The triumph melted into panic, and she reached for the paper, her hand trembling. She begged him not to say another word, but it was too late. I still didn't understand what the paper said. I reached across the table and pulled it towards me, my hands shaking. As I scanned the lines of results, I realized that this wasn't just a DNA report on my 5-year-old daughter, Ava. Buried in the details was information about Lila, a secret she'd buried for years. Lila had always been jealous of my marriage to Ethan. We come from a well-to-do family in the city. My parents are successful business owners, and they've always been supportive of my choices. Ethan is a respected architect, and our marriage has been a happy one. Ava is the light of our lives. Lila, on the other hand, has had a rough time. She's 32 and has been in and out of relationships. She's never been able to hold down a steady job. 3 weeks ago, she showed up at my house uninvited. She was cooing over Ava, running her fingers through her curls like she was inspecting a precious object. I didn't think much of it at the time. Lila has always been dramatic and has a habit of inserting herself where she's not wanted. But I never imagined that she'd steal a strand of Ava's hair from her hairbrush and send it to a DNA lab. She'd always made snide comments about how quickly Ethan and I got married and how suspicious it was that I got pregnant so fast. I just thought it was jealousy. She'd seen my marriage thrive while hers fell apart, and it seemed to eat away at her. Now, as I read the report, I realized that the lab Lila used didn't just do a simple paternity test. It cross-referenced the results against a larger genetic database. And buried in that data was a match no one expected. Lila had a 20-year-old son that she'd given up for adoption 15 years ago. The biological father of the boy, according to the report, was Ethan's older brother, Lucas. My mother finally grabbed the paper from where Ethan had set it down. As her eyes moved across the page, her hand flew to her mouth. She looked up at Lila, and I saw a look of heartbreak on her face. My father asked Lila directly if it was true, if she really had a son out there. For the first time all night, she didn't argue. She just nodded, tears streaming down her face. She admitted that she'd been 17, terrified, and that Lucas had convinced her that adoption was the only option. Their families would never have allowed it, and it was easier to erase it than to face it. She said she'd buried it so deep that she'd almost convinced herself it never happened. Ethan stood up from the table, his jaw still tight. He told Lila calmly that he hoped she found peace with what she'd done, but that peace wasn't going to come from trying to destroy our marriage to distract from her own past. He reached for my hand under the table, and for the first time since Lila walked in with that envelope, I felt like I could breathe again. He never doubted me, not for a second. I know he'd always known Ava was his. Later, he told me that the reason his hands were shaking when he opened the envelope wasn't fear. It was fury at watching my sister try to use our daughter against us. My mother left the table, crying. She needed time to process the fact that she had a grandson she'd never known about. My father sat there, silent, unable to look at Lila. And Lila just sat there, alone, holding the paper that was supposed to destroy my marriage but had instead unraveled 15 years of her carefully guarded secrets. I don't know if my relationship with Lila will ever be repaired. Some things, once said and revealed, can't be taken back. But I do know that the truth she was so desperate to expose about me only existed in her own mind, while the truth about her had been sitting there all along, waiting for the right moment to surface.